You know, a former NBC chief marketer now regrets that they created a false story of Trump being a successful businessman. In other words, the persona that they created of Trump is something that was manufactured for a show. And because America saw that manufactured show, you had a lot of people, and you have a lot of people thinking that, well, Donald Trump is a good businessman and he should run the country like a business. And that's why we want to have him elected. The truth of the matter is, it is silly to want to run the country like a business. In fact, running the country like a business is anathema to a successful government, because a successful government is one that is there as a backstop, not one that is a profit driven, etc. But then again, neither was Donald Trump's businesses, as every single one of them have been in some state of failure. In fact, 6 bankruptcies. And he said, I tell you what, listen to what this NBC chief had to say, and then we'll take it on the other side.
A former NBC marketing executive who promoted The Apprentice is apologizing to the American people for helping to, quote, create a monster. Writing for U.S. News and World Report, John D. Miller says the story he and his team created for Donald Trump was at best a, quote, substantial exaggeration, at worst a false narrative by making him seem more successful than he was. Joining us now, former NBC marketing executive John D. Miller, both NBC, by the way, News and MSNBC are part of Comcast, NBC, Universal. All right, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Okay, good.
I tried to talk to you and others during the 2016 campaign about the myth of Donald Trump from The Apprentice, because what I would hear when I was talking to voters was that they were voting for him because they thought he would do a good job because he was a good businessman.
Right.
And I said, how do you know he's a good businessman? Because I saw him on The Apprentice.
Yeah.
I heard this from multiple people.
Yeah, we were very good at what we did in marketing shows. And in this particular case, creating the false narrative for Donald Trump as a big businessman was very important. The thing was that people had to, the conceit of this show was you didn't win a date, you won a career. And so people had to come in, and for $250,000 if they won, they would get a chance to spend a year with a CEO that would be the person, the apprentice by their sides, learning everything they could.
They get mentored.
Yes, correct. Well, that was pretty much a false narrative as well. But the big thing is that we had to make Donald Trump look like he was a big executive. And before that, he was largely popular in New York. He'd been bankrupt at least 4 times from various businesses, I think 2 more after the show went on the air. And so clearly we had to make something bigger than it was. As I sort of say in promotion, we're making mountains out of molehills every day.
So he wasn't a good business executive.
Well, if someone had been bankrupt, one of his businesses 4 different times, and then 6 in total, I'm not so sure. And what the reason I came forward to a large degree was there's so many people that say that the economy is the biggest thing in this election. And just as you related to us just a minute ago, if people think that he's the person for that because he was a great businessman, that is a false narrative. We did it for the show, but it became very dangerous now for the country.
So there are Americans now who will say, I don't need to look to The Apprentice. I can look to the 4 years while he was in office. And I thought he did a good job while he was in office. What do you say to them about maybe the foundational idea they have of Donald Trump in their mind?
Well, there were some sophisticated things that went on in the economy. First of all, as Obama basically said, he left Trump with a very good economy. And along the way, he didn't really do very much. And so he sort of got out of the way of it. And so what I would say is that he was lucky along the way until he hit a stumbling block, which was the pandemic, in which case he very much mishandled along that way. Now, he did give a tax cut to a lot of different people, but not many people in a certain economic spectrum took great advantage of that. And so what I would say to them is maybe he helped you a little bit, but what I would say is the last 4 years have actually also been very strong, with the stock market hitting new highs and inflation now low, unemployment also low. And so I think that he did a very good job of selling himself, which is what he always did.
Economists will argue that presidents don't really have that much sway over the economy because the economy moves so slowly, and a decision that you make during your presidency doesn't really come to fruition. You don't see the results of it until many years down the line. So would you be arguing that the Donald Trump that you saw during COVID was more the Donald Trump as the executive he was before he was elected into office?
He rarely was, in my knowledge of him and working with him and talking to him, because I knew him for a number of years in this particular period of time, is that he was very good at selling himself. He was very good at telling what he did without actually doing it. And to a large degree, he followed along what maybe he learned what we did in the show, because we created the persona for him and he went along with it. And that was very much advantage to him. But to a large degree, not true.
We are less than 3 weeks before the next election. Why are you writing this now? Yeah. Why now? Why not 4 years ago? Well, 8 years ago.
Up until 22, when I retired, I was a senior executive reporting to the CEO of NBCUniversal and Comcast. And it was probably inappropriate for me as an executive at the time. I wasn't in your position as a news reporter. I was an executive, and the company had certain policies about that sort of thing. So I probably wouldn't have done it at that point. And after that, I started writing a book, and that's one of the chapters. And I realized I am not going to get this published before the election goes out. I had to get it out beforehand. And as I was thinking about what can I do, and I said, well, I have to start somewhere. So I did a Facebook post that turned, and I got a lot of response on that. I said, well, let me do a LinkedIn post because I have a lot of followers there. A lot more awareness. And then a U.S. News Report called me and said, would you do an op-ed? And I said, well, I have one ready. So I sent it to them, and within 3 hours, it was released. And since then, I've been nonstop talking, and it's nice talking to you.
Are you going to be voting for Kamala Harris?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, first of all, I never voted for Trump at the first point. And after meeting him and after working with him, that was a non-starter. Because basically, it's a phony. He does certain things, but actually governing is not one of them.
What would you say to somebody who was considering whether they wanted to vote for her or for him, somebody who still might be on the fence?
I would say if you have a disagreement with the policy, it does not matter. He is a character that's non-starter. And he lies regularly. He will say the same thing over and over again, even though it's not true. I make the little statement, and this is so small by comparison to like the stealing of the election and the pandemic and everything else that he says he did well. To me, he would call up and say, and I was like the fifth call of the day, how'd we do, John? And I knew he'd seen the ratings. I had the ratings right in front of me, and I said, well, we did very well. It's the #1 show on television. In truth.
Always cared about numbers.
Absolutely.
Now, again, this NBC chief who created this persona of a Trump being a successful businessman, who made people believe that he was a fairly trustworthy guy, made sure to not have ever voted for this guy, Donald Trump. But above and beyond that, he felt a responsibility. He was writing a book about the farce that Donald Trump is, et cetera, more than just a farce that Trump is. But he knew that the book would not be released before the election. And he thought it his responsibility, now that Donald Trump has been threatening to become president again, that it was his patriotic duty, his responsibility to let America know that electing this, it's a clear and present danger to run this guy that is nothing more than the facade of success. But beneath it, no success. And he asked one important question. Is a good businessman one who's run his company 6 times into the ground? Is that really a good businessman? Above and beyond that he's a liar, above and beyond that he's been declared a rapist by a judge, above and beyond that he is a misogynist, a rapist, a homophobic, all these characteristics, person who steals from charities, person who goes ahead and steals from people by faking a universe. I mean, one after the other. Is this the president we want? And he comes out and he says, I have a responsibility to tell the truth even before my book comes out so that the American people would actually get away from the facade, the fallacy that somehow this guy is a good businessman. In fact, this guy's good at absolutely nothing other than marketing to the uninformed.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.